Over 10 sold daily. The few, the proud.
The many. Utopia.
Okay, we're rolling.
I'd like to sing the back.
All right.
Okay, who's got the other mic?
Yeah, we have all the mics together here. I got one of them.
Chair here.
Okay, we are rolling.
All right. Well, let's ask the first question, and that is, what about this new album, Oblivion? It seems that you guys have basically put it out on your own in association with Gem Records. Why did you decide to do that, gentlemen?
Well, we were tired of being buried in the rush with, all the big labels releasing all these other acts and giving priority attention to the usual record sellers, and we wanted to do something where we could continue to keep our business going and have more artistic control.
More artistic control. What do you mean?
Well, we designed the label in our own art studio, which was the kitchen.
The kitchen table.
Your own art studio.
Yes.
Well, it's just we figured we couldn't suck any worse than all other labels we'd been on. We might as well give it.
Any worse than that.
We couldn't do a worse job. So
We actually did as good a job, or maybe even proved to be a better job. Considering that if you look at us as a new record label, we did pretty good with this record. Everybody had to mortgage their home to put it out,
but we still have our homes. We didn't lose our homes.
And we have a record out. So we're pat ourselves on the head for that one.
I don't know. You guys think you're over creative for people. Your music comes out, and you come up with hits every now and then. We had, Crybaby right now, which is a big one for you. Do you think that maybe you're a little bit too sophisticated for people? Maybe you're a little ahead of your time, musically?
Ahead of our time, we might be ahead of their time.
Well, maybe we're just like above or below our time. we're like in a different. I always thought that we were commercial. We're just like not
commercially accepted.
Yeah, we're just not really. We're not overt about it like most like. A lot of people, don't mind being obviously commercial, but our commercialism only comes as a sort of a natural result of our influences. So it's not like refined sugar. It's like
it's more of a byproduct.
Yeah, if there's any commercialism, it's a byproduct of our
cheese foods.
Yeah.
It's funny though, because you guys have all the tools it takes to be successful these days. I mean, you have Roger with all his synthesizers there. You fool around with all those things. Todd gets into his vocals, guitars, and all that. And somehow it just seems to go above people, because we hear from people at the station that they like your music a lot, but sometimes they don't understand it.
That's neither do we.
Just because we do it doesn't mean we understand it.
That just means you can play our records more often before you figure them out.
I see.
They'll be more interesting 5 years from now than perhaps they are even today.
That's
interesting.
Buy
that? Okay.
I'll buy it. Why not? Okay, what about the image of the band now? Looking at the past album covers of Utopia, it always seemed that you guys had the same look. There was one time when you all wore real cut, nice suits, and you were there, and that was the image. But these days, you take a look at the band. Yeah, I mean, we got a long coat here. We got a what do we have here? A leather jacket and just basic everyday street clothes. Do you find that this makes you sound better? Makes you feel better about what you do?
Helps us sound better.
To you.
You should hear us when we're all wearing corduroy pants. Right? We sound great. But no, it's just we go through phases. Sometimes we got to go through phases where we're just kind of loose about it. We're in a loose phase now.
Just a phase we're going through.
Then we go through phases where we play dress up. We put on daddy's clothes.
Or mommy and daddy's clothes.
Mommy and daddy's clothes, and it's
maybe that's our next phase.
Boy George, cover of People magazine, who can tell, you put on grandmommy's clothes and make it big.
You guys kind of find that you're having a laugh at this business a little bit?
You have to.
It's like you're kind of on the outside and you have this sarcastic view of what's going on. Like you take a look at the trends and you seem to do the opposite thing all the time, just to twist people. Is that?
That's pretty true.
Yeah, we're twisted. Yeah,
You're very close.
We're a twisted bunch of guys.
Yeah.
Well, it's also what's the point in us making records? Exactly like everybody else makes records. It's like say any commercialism we have is only a byproduct. Our real objective is to make original, to whatever degree we're capable, original records. Records that don't sound like other people. So I suppose as long as we continue to do that, we will either be not highly commercially successful, or we will be
Broke.
or we will be the most successful because we will be the only people doing it. You know?
If people
We
listen,
keep telling ourselves that. You know.
yeah, if people listen to your records and they go, let's take the Oblivion album, what do you want them to get out of it when they hear it? Is there anything that any kind of reaction that you would like to have them come out of the room when they played it on the stereo and say, wow, I understand what these guys are talking about? Any kind of message in the record? Or
Sometimes there are messages in the record. I don't think the last record was as much of a message record as a. I think in certain ways it was just more visceral. You know, we thought of it as being a dance record. You know, we thought that this was as danceable as we ever get. You know, on the last record. And most likely we won't be doing that same record next time we make a record. We haven't decided yet. We know we're going to make a record, but we haven't sat down and figured out what the record's going to be like. So.
Any suggestions?
Yeah.
sure, I got some, but
What kind of record would you like to buy?
Yeah. Write them down.
is it possible for Utopia to come down to Earth? Do you know what that is?
Oh, we do every once in a while. We get
Does that music go over your head, possibly?
No, oh no.
You like it, right?
Yeah, I like
Okay,
it.
it's
Hey, I
these
paid
people
for my
out here
record.
that are confused. Call this number tonight, and we will
1-800.
explain everything.
Yeah.
I don't know, we're just in that satellite that just they forgot about, you know.
Yeah, we're in that satellite out of orbit. You know. We need the space shuttle to come up and repair our records. What
Beats
kind-
me.
Yeah. What was the question?
The question was, were you coming down to Earth?
Are we coming down to Earth?
Yeah.
Were we ever here to begin with?
The point is, I don't think we look at ourselves that way. We don't think of ourselves as being weird, you know. I think whenever we make a record, we always figure we could always be a lot weirder. In fact, we've made records that were really strange at some points.
With corduroy pants?
Some of our,
Corduroy pants on, that was it.
corduroy pants and other things, you know.
Disco Jets.
It's not even necessarily the instruments we play, but I remember when we first started making records, those were weird records, you know. By
That was when the
comparison.
objective was to be.
When the objective was to be really out, you know.
Yeah.
Now we're just naturally
Yeah, I
out.
mean, to us, it's, you know, we're like, just, you know, bread and butter now. This is
Yeah.
like easy stuff, you know.
Yeah. I mean, if we decide to be weird, look out.
Get out of the way.
And they could be our next record, too. You know.
If we decide to be weird, look out.
Yeah.
That's a great title. You ought to write that down.
There's a whole marathon thing that goes on with album titles before we do an album.
If
We have dozens, hundreds maybe, of album titles.
you just dream them up and just throw them out
Well, they
there
just come out. I don't know what's in
on the kitchen table in the same art studio, right?
Well, kind of like, you know, we like being incontinent, you know, it's like being a bedwetter or something. You know. We just can't help it. These
It
titles
comes
come
out
up.
of jokes that we make. We come up with a line or something, and then we don't use it.
Yeah, well, they're funny to us anyway.
At the time.
Yeah.
There's one record in particular I'd like to ask you about, and that's the one, it's actually the first one, albums that I bought by you guys, Deface the Music, when you did that little Beatles parody. Why did you do that?
Why not?
It was fun.
We thought it was
Just
the
did it
Dave Clark Five.
Is it just one of those moods, or did you
one of those
actually have this
crazy
planned out
things.
for a while?
No, it was just, we didn't know what we were going to do when we started that record. It just sort of
We
came out
originally
that
had
way.
done a song for the Roadie soundtrack,
Roadie movie.
and they wouldn't accept it because they were afraid that they would be sued
By the Beatles.
by the
I can't
Beatles.
figure out why, but
So
that was just an
that sounds-
excuse.
That sounds like a great idea. Let's do it. So we did a whole album of music like
Yeah, as soon as we offend somebody, we realize that's the way to
That's
go.
the way.
That's right. We do more of the same at that point.
Oh, yeah? Oh, yeah? You
Great.
think that's weird? Yeah.
We'll try this.
Check this out.
What about videos? How do you guys feel about them? You seem to be pretty creative, especially with the Crybaby one, which is rather interesting. Certainly blew my mind when I saw it.
Pretty wacky, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Super.
Well, we've always had an interest in video. It, unfortunately, is an extremely expensive medium to work in, so we don't do as much of it as, say, Duran Duran.
Or Rick Springfield.
Or, and those people, we're just more, when we do them, we're more careful, in what we do. We try and be just more original, a little more out of the main, it's like kind of like our records,
Don't you feel, though, that you're kind of a video band, though? Because, again, you have that eccentricity, that creativity that can be transformed onto tape. People can take a look at it, and you can give a song any kind of meaning you want. You just seem to be the perfect group for a video.
Yeah, but you're up against the same thing as when putting records out. In fact, it's even a more limited market. I mean, if you think about what MTV is, it's like one radio station. I mean, what if there was one radio station in the country? What would they play? They would play just all the most, cream of the commercial crop. It's the same thing with MTV. I mean, if we make something that's too outside for them, which a lot of our stuff has been, or controversial or whatever, they're just going to say, well, this is interesting, and put it on a few times, and then people will call up and they want to see, Olivia Newton-John or something.
Def Leppard.
So it's even harder to break into that market, to get your videos shown.
If you had to, and you do because we're sitting here, how would you categorize the sound of Utopia? Is there anything that you can call it, or does it defy categorization? 2, 3, 4.
Who got its own
We're
sound?
just like, just nobody wants to speak first. We all have such a, we have never,
It's cool music.
Never really thought.
we never figured out, all of our,
what if you
all
did
of our
think about
albums
it?
are different from the last
Yeah, we never
album.
do the same thing.
No two albums are the same, so there's no way to.
When we get together to
categorize.
write music and do our music, it's like, now we really don't, it's not a conscious process, we just kind of do it now, and it's just,
We all get unconscious before we do it.
Right.
it's not
our
really,
secret.
No, I
at this
think
point,
like
a conscious effort that comes out sounding like, anything else. We
That's
just
the
have our
sound
own
of the band, actually, is that it changes. Is that we don't, try to let's say that we had, we've had records which probably been played more than other ones. That's the way I qualify a hit to us, is one of our records is played more than another one. But if we have something which is marginally successful, we didn't, try to milk that. We don't consciously try to make it sound every single song, every single record sound the same.
All the records have a
they all have
Utopia
something
sound, I think.
Yeah.
And we get interested in different kinds of, we're on different trips at different times.
And I think for the most part, we still try and sound like a band, like a guitar player, a keyboard player, and a drummer and a bass player, and don't really get too. We don't, do an album with a horn section, or 1,600 percussionists or something like that. We try and maintain something of the character of four people playing. There may be other sounds to add coloration, but it's generally sound of four people playing. It's just it would never be the same style twice in a row.
To me, you guys seem kind of like what we would call a non-band. You're a band that really isn't one, simply because everybody's such a strong individual. A lot of bands, you'll find that everybody just blends right together. You don't really hear much from, say, the guitar player or maybe the drummer, but the bass player and the keyboard player does all the talking. This band, everybody does all the talking. Everybody's got something to say.
What a mess.
How do you keep it
Nobody
all?
can figure it out.
How do you make it so it all fits together so well?
Well, it is, it's a process. All of our records are the product of a process, which is the way that we, come up with music. It is true that in most bands they have one or two people who do everything, and everybody else just plays. Just does whatever they're told to play. But in this band, everybody contributes to the extent that nobody ever gets individual credit on their records anymore for writing or anything like that. It's hard to tell who wrote what by the time we're finished doing it. It's just you think it's complicated. I've seen when we had 6 people in the band, 6 people and 3 background singers. Then things are a little complicated. But even then, I think it all worked out. We all managed to come to a consensus of what it is we did want to play and what we didn't want to play.
Okay, last one for you guys. What is the ultimate goal for Utopia? What are you trying to do?
To do this
These people.
interview.
Now that we've done this,
This is it. We've arrived.
Hang up our
Yeah.
heads.
This is
All right,
it.
well,
We're
you're
going to
doing
break
good.
up the band tonight. This is our last gig
last
Right.
show.
tonight.
Actually, we're breaking up right now on camera.
I'll see you.
Okay,
Right here.
I've had enough of you guys. What a drink.
There you have it. Thank you. Hotel. Take it easy. Okay. Thank you very much. What is the ultimate goal for Utopia? What do you guys really want to accomplish?